Alright, so I played a game recently called Blood West. This is a bit of a strange game because it feels like it's attempting to be a roguelike, but isn't. So, just like roguelikes, it feels a bit bare bones in every respect, mostly being difficult for the sake of being difficult, and because it's an actually well-designed, linear, single-player stealth FPS. Anyway, I don't think I'd recommend it, but I did enjoy some of the time I've spent with it, using cheat engine. Without that, I'd probably drop it in chapter 1. What is it about? To be honest, I think the title is enough here. Undead cowboy kicks ass of weird monsters, ghouls and the like. Watch the cutscene. If anything is gonna sell this game, then it will. Definitely praising the cutscene. I'll probably link it in the description. What did I enjoy? The world. Just like Gloomwood from the same devs, I very much enjoyed the grim, dark world here. Everything is going to crap, everyone is sick, mutating, or is already some sort of monster. And there are very few people who are actually alive. At times there are American Indian motifs, at others it's a typical Wild West setting with gunsling and whatever else. I just like this world. It's a cool world which weirdly doesn't seem to pop up as often as you'd think. At least not the supernatural kind. I'm definitely a sucker for the supernatural in games, more so than the mundane. By the way, the enemy designs are also pretty memorable, from bizarre amalgamations of bone and flesh, to insectoid humanoids without arms, to crocs straight out of Darkest Dungeon. Someone definitely had morbid fun coming up with all this stuff. I've also enjoyed well, it's hard to explain, but the point is that I've enjoyed how unforgiving the game could be. While also hating it so much that I cheated close to the end of the game, just all the way. I had all the stats. Because at times enemies hit me for a third of my life bar in one hit, and they definitely don't attack that slowly. Just as what it reminds me of the same stuff I've liked in Dishonored, Deus Ex, and again Gloomwood. Enemies in those games aren't supposed to be mowed down like in Warframe. They can pose an actual threat, and when I overcame them, it was satisfying. Sneaking around and stabbing them in the face, while if I had to fight them straight up, they'd wipe the floor with my undead ass. It's an actual stealth game which rewards stealth, and I suppose I didn't play too many of those, so it felt fresh. I think as I got older I've got a lot more patience for stealth, so I might revisit some titles I've missed before. And retrospectively think what this game is actually worse than I do right now. But who knows. Anyway, Blood West is definitely not very complex in that regard. There aren't complicated patrol paths, sophisticated alarm system, or whatever else is there. Instead, it's just that enemy damage output and their health are fairly huge, which again makes the whole thing a lot more unforgiving than one would expect. And for the time being, it was fun. And this is it. Yeah, only 2 points really, because as it turns out the game is fairly empty. The zones have a few pickups, maybe environment tells a little story, like miners are cursed to work even after they die. And if they don't, a bear monster eats them as punishment. Or a few tidbits about the expedition to the chasm which suddenly appeared in the middle of town. It's all fairly insignificant and not very memorable. The whole game honestly feels like a proof of concept. Like an attempt to create something simple before moving on to a more complicated thing, trying to learn from their mistakes and end up with a better, well, not exactly sequel, but the next game. Or maybe I'm just guessing here, because again, this game is fully out. Gloomwood isn't, and Gloomwood is, for all intents and purposes, a longer, more complex and a lot more interesting version of this. With some important lessons from immersive sims. That game I'll talk about when it fully comes out of early access. It's good, this is all I will say. But Blood West, definitely not a great game, but it can be a fun distraction. Besides, there are a few cool cutscenes appearing because of it. And I did enjoy those, so that's a plus.